In this video, we'll be looking at using Platt for the calculation and tracking of care worker leave entitlement. To use Platt for this purpose, we need to first activate leave entitlement tracking, which is done at the organization level. So we'll go to our organization, go to the Employment tab, and tick Track Leave Entitlement. So everything I'll be showing in the remainder of this video is dependent upon this box having been ticked first. The first thing you'll see when ticking the Track Leave Entitlement box is the appearance here of a new field, Default Holiday Year Start. This field has 13 available options, the first of each of the 12 months of the year, and the final option is Start of First Contract. So the value we select here is going to help set the holiday year start for our care workers. And we'll look at the process of defining care worker holiday year start later on. Another thing that happens when we tick the Track Leave Entitlement box is a number of new fields are added to our grade setup, and we will need to visit all of our grades and specify the correct values for those fields before we can begin to use Platt for tracking leave entitlement. So let's look at an example. We'll take a look at the probation grade. And here we see under the heading of annual leave parameters, there are 4 new fields. Yearly entitlement, the first of those fields, is the most important of all. This tells Platt the rate at which care workers at this grade will earn annual leave. The value that we specify here should be the number of days of annual leave that a care worker would earn if they worked 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Of course, care workers are not actually likely to work every single day of the year, so the actual number of days of leave that care workers will earn will be some proportion of this value. So taking a hypothetical example of a care worker who works 6 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, they would earn 6/7 of the value that we specify here. That's about 33.5 days, and we would expect in most cases that your employment contracts are going to specify some kind of maximum. So the maximum number of days that a care worker can earn regardless of the number of days that they actually work. So if you do have a maximum yearly entitlement, you'll specify that value here. If there is no maximum, we simply put a value of 0. Your employment contracts are also likely to specify a number of days that care workers are allowed to carry forward from one holiday year to the next. If there is a carry forward allowance, specify that here. If care workers are not allowed to carry forward any days of annual leave, specify a value of 0. And if there is actually no cap and they can carry forward as much as they want, then you should put the same value here as you enter for the maximum yearly entitlement. Current UK employment legislation dictates that leave entitlement calculations can never do rounding down. Either you can round up to the nearest half day, or you can round up to the nearest whole day. If you want to use half day rounding, tick this box. To use full day rounding, leave that box unticked. And while we're talking about UK employment legislation, let's return to the yearly entitlement field and talk briefly about how this value of 39.2 has been derived. Current UK legislation says that full-time employees must receive at least 5.6 weeks of annual leave. The value of 39.2 is significant because if you take that 5.6 number and multiply it by 7, that is the number that you reach. So we expect that for all of your grades, the value entered here, if you are a UK provider, is likely to be no less than 39.2. Of course, you may have more generous employment contracts for all or some of your care workers. Perhaps you have a senior grade for care workers who have been with the organisation for a certain number of years, and perhaps for those senior care workers they earn annual leave at a faster rate, so you may put a bigger value here. Perhaps they have a greater cap on the maximum yearly entitlement, or perhaps they can carry forward more days of leave. So this is why all of these fields are set up at the grade level, as it enables you to have different parameters for different groups of care workers. So the values that we specify here are all to do with the calculation of care workers' leave entitlement. Once a care worker has earned leave, they will of course take some holiday, and we need to record those holidays in Platt as well. To record a holiday for a care worker, we're going to be adding an event to their calendar. that event needs to use an event type which has been specifically designated as leave. So the last part of the configuration that I need to show you here is setting up your leave event type or types. Let's go to the event type list, and you'll see that I have a holiday event type already set up. If you're an existing user of Platt, you'll probably have one set up too. And what you'll need to do is visit that event type and make sure that the is leave box, which is a new field, is ticked. The is leave box is only available for event types where the has care worker field is ticked and the assume care worker available field is ticked. And that's because, quite obviously, care workers do not need to be available to take holiday. If the has service user or has staff field are ticked, then is leave is not available. So once we've set up our holiday event types and we've configured our grades, then we're ready to go. Everything else that I'm going to show you in this video is going to be at the care worker level. Let's start by looking at a new care worker and see how we can specify the holiday year start. So Rita Cook is a new employee. She is currently under the employment status of successful applicant. Let's put her onto probation by adding a probation contract. And we'll say that Rita will start work on the 1st of April. When I save that, we'll see we get this error. Rita Cook requires a holiday year start once they have a start date. That error message is prompting me to visit the new Holidays tab. That tab will appear for any care workers who have a contract if their organisation is one that has the leave entitlement tracking option enabled. When I click on the Holidays tab, you'll see that this care worker already has a holiday year start, which begs the question, why did we just see that error message? Well, the reason is that the error message is there to prompt you to visit this tab so you can confirm that the value here is correct. This value has been taken by using the default holiday year start option that we configured against the organisation earlier. But each care worker could have a different holiday year start, and the system needs you to confirm that the correct value has been entered here. So purely by accessing this tab, I can now save this record. When I do that, the annual leave entitlement for the current holiday year is done automatically and the data is shown. So for the 2021 holiday year, which is the first holiday year for our brand new care worker, we see that there is no leave brought forward from the previous year, and then there is a calculation of the number of days of annual leave which the care worker will earn or is projected to earn in this holiday year. We can adjust that if necessary, up or down, and that gives us the total leave entitlement for the year. The care worker will have holidays taken and holidays booked at some point, and those values will be taken off the total to give us the number of days of annual leave remaining for this year. The reason we're seeing zeros here is because, of course, this is a brand new care worker. They have no work and they have no holidays. Let's take a look at a different care worker where there is some work set up, and we can see what this tab will look like in that case. So we visit the holidays tab for Imogen Francis, and we see the calculation of the 2021 holiday year is that she is projected to earn an entitlement to 17 days of annual leave. Now, I use the word projected there. It is important to note that because this is the current holiday year, that is just a projection. It is based upon this care worker continuing to do the template that is currently set up in their calendar. If we take a look at Francis's calendar, you can see that she works 3 days a week. Those 3 days are significant in the calculation of 17 days. Let's click on the link here and we can see how that calculation has been done. This may look somewhat complicated. There are a lot of numbers here. The calculation is actually reasonably straightforward. If you need to refer to some information about the calculation, you can click on the question mark here, and it adds information about how that calculation has been performed with annotations that refer back to the various columns and values shown above. The calculation is done by splitting the holiday year into one or more periods. In most cases, there will be just one period, but if this is the first holiday year for a new employee, or if it's the last holiday year for a leaving employee, Or if it is a holiday year in which the care worker changed grade, then there will be more than one row. And the reason for that is because each time the care worker's grade changes, there will potentially be a change of annual leave calculation parameters, and we need to apply those parameters to just that portion of the year that that particular grade applied to. So in this case, Imogen was on probation for the first 73 days of the holiday year, and then on March the 15th, she was accepted in post and became a CSW grade worker. And we are projecting that she will continue to be that for the remainder of the holiday year, which is 292 days. So we're going to treat the two periods individually, and we're going to calculate the holiday entitlement for each period, and finally we're going to add those two values together. In this particular case, the probation grade and the CSW grade both have the same yearly entitlement. So the calculation here is actually basically the same for the two periods, but that needn't be the case. The two grades could have different values for the yearly entitlement. So for the probation period, that's 73 days. We need to prorate the yearly entitlement twice. We first prorate it to take account of the fact that this is only for 73 days of the holiday year, and then we prorate it again to take into account only those of the 73 days that the care worker actually worked. So that 30 there is the number of days which we are projecting the care worker to work, or in terms of historical data, days that they have worked. So we prorate the yearly entitlement twice, and that gives us a value in this case of 3.22. We also prorate any maximum that has been set up for this particular grade to determine the maximum number of days of leave entitlement that the care worker could take during this period, and that prorated maximum for the 73 days that the care worker is on probation is 5.6. So in this case 3.22 is less than that, so there is no cap applied. For the remainder of the holiday year, the 292 days here, we do the same calculation, and in this case we determine that Imogen will earn, or is projected to earn, 13.5 days. Again, that is less than the period cap, so no capping is applied. We add these two values together, and then we round either up to the nearest half day or up to the nearest day, dependent upon configuration, to give us the total number of days of annual leave which we are projecting that Frances will earn in this holiday year. As the year passes, the data will become more accurate in the sense that it will be using actual data rather than projected data, and that value may very well change. So I've talked a lot about days worked, and let's understand now how that calculation is done. If I click on the link here, you will see that we get a breakdown of all of the days in the period in question, and we see simply a tick to identify which of those days are worked, and the total number of ticks is the 30 that we see here. And if we refer back to the calendar, those days worked are all of the Mondays, the Wednesdays and the Thursdays. The system has simply identified days when the care worker has worked or is projected to work by looking for paid events in his or her calendar. It is as simple as that. There could be one event, there could be 10 events. But what about care workers who do night shifts? In this particular case, all of Imogen's work is during the day, so it's easy to say that she is working 3 days a week. Let's take a look at a care worker who does overnight work. Joey Reynolds is a carer in that group. If we look at his calendar, we see that he works Monday nights into Tuesday mornings. He does domestic duties during the day on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and he has a sleepover that he does regularly on Friday night into Saturday morning. Let's take a look at the holidays tab for Joey. The calculation is performed, and here we see that for the 2021 holiday year, Joey is projected to earn 22.5 days of annual leave. Let's click on that and then click on the worked link to see how that breakdown of 208 days worked has been calculated. Here we see that on Fridays and Saturdays, on Mondays and Tuesdays, Joey is identified as doing night shifts, and on Wednesdays and Thursdays he's identified as doing day shifts. The night shifts contribute a half day, so that's the evening and the following morning, and the day shifts calculate 1 day. If Joey was to do a day shift on the same day as a night shift ended, then that day would just count as one. So we can see that the system will identify cases where care workers are working overnight, and it will count the night and the following morning as half a day each. In this particular case, as was not the case with the other care workers we looked at, we can see that there are 2 holiday years, and this is because if we look at Joey's employment tab, he started back in 2018. We're only showing the holiday years for the current year and the previous year on the basis that this is likely to be the only data of interest. If you want to look back further, click Go Back 1 year, and we can do that again. We can't go back any earlier than the care worker's first year, and we'll get an error message if we try to do so. So here we can see that for the care worker's first holiday year, there is no brought forward amount. But for all of the following holiday years, there is a brought forward amount. In this particular case, for the 2019 holiday year, Joey is carrying forward 4 days. I can't increase that because that is the number of days that are remaining. I can decrease it if I'm not allowing him, for whatever reason, to carry forward all of those days. Let's say that I wanted to adjust the calculation. Perhaps this 12, for whatever reason, is deemed to be incorrect, or for whatever reason I want to award additional days. In that case, it's simply a case of incrementing the adjustment column, and you'll see that the number of days remaining increases as I do that. Let's say I give him an additional 4 days of leave for that year. So the number of days that could conceivably be carried forward is 8. But I cannot increase the actual number of days brought forward by any more than 5, and that is because of the maximum that we set up when configuring that particular grade. Let's look now at the columns for taken and booked. In this particular case, for the 2021 holiday year, the total number of days of entitlement that the care worker is expected to have earned by the end of that year is 27.5, and they have already booked 8 days of holiday, as we can see here. Booked holiday is any holiday in the care worker's calendar that has yet to be paid, and taken is holiday that has been paid. So this, if you like, is the confirmed holidays, and this is the projected holidays. Now, in my particular case, the data is not entirely realistic because none of the holiday bookings have been paid, and that's why everything is appearing in the booked column. Let's click on one of the links in this column to see how we can see the calculation for that. Here, for the 2019 holiday year, we see that Joey has a total of 3 holidays that were taken. In each case, we see the event type and the start and finish dates for those particular holidays. And then there is a calculation of the number of days worked. This number here is the number of days that will be subtracted from the care worker's leave entitlement to derive the remaining. So in this particular case, the holiday is from Monday the 4th of March to Monday the 18th of March. That's 2 weeks. If we look back at Joey's calendar again, we see that he works 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and 4 days a week. So that is where the worked value of 8 comes from, because he's working 4 days on the first week of the holiday, or he was going to be working 4 days, I should say, and he was going to be working 4 days on the second week. So the significance of this is that if the care worker takes a holiday on a day when they weren't due to be working anyway, then that does not subtract anything from their leave entitlement. What we are doing is subtracting 1 day for each day of the holiday when they would otherwise have been working. That 8 plus 4 plus 6 gives us the total booked holidays of 18, which is subtracted from the total to give the remaining here. In some cases, it may be necessary to adjust this value, and to do that we click on the link to visit the individual event. That will take us to the tabbed page for this event, and if we go to the caregivers tab, you'll see that that leave taken calculation that we were just looking at is shown here, and we can adjust it if necessary, up or down in half-day increments. As we make a change to that field, a link appears here telling us what the calculated value was and providing us with the ability to clear that override and return to the calculated value. And whilst there is no override, we can click on the breakdown to see that here. So if I was to save an override of 10, go back to the caregiver and return to their holidays tab, go back to the year in question, you'll see now that the number of days booked is 20 because I have overridden that value there. So everything I have shown so far refers to care workers who are out on the field every day visiting service users. But what about your staff who work from the office and only do care work occasionally or irregularly, perhaps just in an emergency? For those care workers, they're still working, but in most cases they're working from the office. We need to reflect their office work in their annual leave entitlement calculation. Let's have a look at a care worker in that category. I've got one here, Natalie Caldecott. If we take a look at Natalie's calendar, we'll see that she works from the office from 7 until 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. But she does have overtime availability to work early mornings and early evenings throughout the week and all day on Saturdays. She has a regular care duty that she covers on Friday mornings, and she has regular domestic work that she covers on Saturdays. So in this case, Natalie is working 6 days a week on a regular basis. So if we visit her holidays tab, we would expect it to reflect that, and indeed it does. In this particular case, we can see the cap in effect. Because Natalie is working 6 days a week, that actually means that she would earn 33.5 days of leave in the year, all things being equal, but there is a maximum of 28 set up against the grade, which means that we are capping the entitlement at that value. And if we look at the days worked for Natalie, by clicking on the link there, here we see her working Monday to Saturday every day of the week. So just to confirm that the worked calculation looks in the calendar for your care workers, and it says that any day where they have office availability and or care events will be considered a day worked.